Hi, it's Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO here in beautiful Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. We're part of Fractional Pros Canada, the home for Canada's fractional community, and you can find us on Facebook. We bring you conversations about everything fractional that matters for fractional executives and businesses from coast to coast. Think of this as your go-to spot for real talk, practical wisdom, and strategies you can actually use, all without the corporate fluff and with plenty of Canadian content. Whether you're a fractional pro or a business in our great country of Canada and beyond, this conversation is for you. Grab your espresso and let's dive in. Welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada podcast, where we explore everything fractional. I'm Robert Mendelson, and joining me today is Robert Cooper. We're renaming today's podcast the Robert Podcast. Why not? Robert Cooper, perhaps the biggest geek I know when it comes to SEO and Google paid, and more recently, how AI is changing those games. And we're going to talk about all of that, and maybe we'll even get an answer to the question that's been going around for the last couple of years since GPT came on the scene. Is SEO dead? The Fractional Pros Canada podcast is powered by Your CMO, the proven framework for fractional CMOs. Learn more at yourcmo.com. That's YORCMO.com. Welcome to the Pros Pod, Robert Cooper.
Great to be here, Robert.
So, big shift underway when it comes to how people are searching. Google search is dropping. ChatGPT now at, I think the latest stat we've seen is 14% of American searchers are using it daily. I know I myself use Perplexity a lot now instead of going to Google search. So a big shift moving away from what has been the dominant Google search go-to for literally decades. So Rob, how is AI search fundamentally different from what we're used to with Google, and what do businesses need to do to adapt to that?
Well, that's a big question. I'll start with what's different, maybe, and really the biggest difference is something that is awesome, which is that SEO is based mostly on signals. It's not really based on content. I mean, content obviously is critically important, but Google historically has looked at a series of different signals. So like, how many links are there to a site? Are they authoritative? And now there's even sites that are spoofing being authoritative by creating the signals to look authoritative. That's been going on for years. So, and then it's like, are the keywords on the page? What's the keyword density? Again, that's a metric that isn't really used anymore, but just examples of all these basically signals that SEOs for decades now have been basically tweaking the signals more than focused on the content. And AI finally does have the ability, and there's ways of tricking it, but at least in a much better, more holistic fashion of understanding if it is good quality content, if it's the right information, versus whether it's all the signals that suggest that that's the case. So I look at it as hopefully an era of kind of authenticity in content. And as much as everybody talks about AI, is going to flood the internet with garbage content, which of course it is, and which, low quality content writers were already doing. I think for companies that are smart, there will be a real shift towards quality, authentic content, because I don't think mediocre content is no longer going to cut it. So that's probably the thing I'm most excited about, and probably the biggest difference.
It's kind of funny to hear the words authentic and authenticity when AI is making it so easy to be anything but that these days, which I guess finishes the loop where authenticity becomes more important than ever, but also it's becoming increasingly difficult to figure out, is that authenticity that we're seeing really authentic? Is it real, or is it AI generated authenticity? It's enough to drive you nuts.
Yeah, and it's a bit of both, but I mean, when everybody, we're going to be at a point very quickly where everybody has access to all the same tools. And so I really do believe that in terms of market differentiation that having some thought leadership, some intellectual property, that doesn't exist in AI is going to make a huge difference. So I think that I think we will see kind of the rise of the expert, um, which is exciting.
So is traditional SEO still relevant these days? Should we be focusing on that still, or we move on from that?
Still absolutely relevant, at least the good parts of it. So again, I still get, I'm in SEO forums. I still have people doing paid link building, which there are some fringe cases where it makes sense, where it's actually sort of spreading some green to get access to a really good topical site, but 99+% of it is just garbage. It's paying to get links from sites that have been spoofed to think that are trying to spoof Google to think that they're good. And I think that's going to go away. So that type of the trickery is going to go away, I believe, because AI is also smart enough to figure out, like, oh, despite the fact that I got a link from a site that has a 90 domain authority, they're going to be able to figure out like that it's garbage. So that's going to become a big negative, which interestingly, I think Google is using more tools in their search vetting now, because we are seeing more and more potential clients coming to us that are being penalized because Google is identifying some of the dirty tricks that they're doing that they didn't used to. So for instance, saw a client or a potential client came in last week or the week before. We did a bit of a review and discovered that, oh, you have a spoofed link from cancer.org. And just like no rational person would do that. But in the past, hugely authoritative site. In the past, you could slip stuff like that by Google. I think those days are gone away, which is great. And I took way too long to answer that question.
It's all good. But I guess it's kind of funny because AI is policing the AI in a way. So it's inescapable to get out of that AI loop, no matter what side of it you're looking on.
Absolutely. The other funny thing I threw in on that question about whether SEO is relevant is, as much as it pains me to say it, uh, and we're one of the first companies in Canada to launch an AI search optimization service. So as much as it pains me to say it, the actual technology and techniques, there's nothing brand new in terms of AI optimization. It's really more of a mindset shift than a technical shift in terms of what you're doing. And there are a lot of things like schema and your site linking structure and that things that were always important in SEO, but not a lot of companies paid a lot of attention to. Those become now critically important in AI search optimization. So there are some differences, but in essence, SEO folk are absolutely geared to still relevant in the market. Um, it's interesting. I think of things like when the internet really took off and social media really took off, and PR companies started folding like crazy, which just drove me nuts at the time, because it's like, oh, you have all the skills required to flourish in what's now happening on the web in terms of getting your clients interviews on websites, maybe not publications, getting links, making your clients interesting to the world, and building something around them. So I sort of see it like that for search engine optimization. I think the professionals that are sort of focused on client goals versus just focused on their set of technology that they have to implement, I think they can do just fine.
So as a fractional CMO, I should continue to advise clients to, continue more or less the same traditional old world SEO strategies, which is really content first, but and that also is still going to work even as it kind of shifts to this AI driven search landscape. Is that about right?
That is about right. That said, there's a lot we can a rebirth would be an excellent idea, in fact, in terms of mindset, because I don't want to sound like the crusty old guy, but most SEO efforts currently don't work. There's a small number of companies that take it really serious and take their SEO to a level of excellence. And then there's the other kind of 90% of folks that have heard, like, oh, content is good for SEO. I just need to publish a weekly blog post. That unto itself does nothing except sort of you might have your content showing up for a short period of time, but then it goes off to die. Just doing that is not enough, and so there is sort of all the peripheral activities around it, all the taxonomy, all the things like schema, all the things like categories, tags, interlinking strategically, all those things which generally aren't being done now, need to get done to really succeed in the AI search.
It's all that boring technical stuff that, just about anybody can generate content, right? Even a junior marketing person these days, working at a company, could just whip out their favorite AI tool and have some kind of article, some kind of content, comes up within 30 minutes, maybe. But all that other stuff, you really need to have some kind of technical knowledge about, like you mentioned, the schemas and the title tags and the meta tags, etc. We need to know about those, need to know how to optimize those properly. So that basic layer of foundational SEO sounds like has not gone away and is not going away anytime soon.
No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. And I mean, the other interesting thing as well is that just public the junior. Well, first off, junior marketing people may cease to exist in the near future. I mean, I know there are certain tasks in our company that I no longer assign because it's quicker just to get some AI support and do them myself than actually going through the process of assigning it, which is just crazy. Um, the other thing is, and this goes back to SEO, but I think is very relevant for AI search optimization as well, is in Google launched their newest internal guidelines for people inside the company who are actually humans who are checking on websites, and they have I think it's a 180-page guideline document that speaks to what these humans should think about and look at, and they specifically addressed AI content. And really what became clear, which for once in my life I've been right, because this is what I've been saying for the last few months,
Finally.
is that it's not really about whether it's AI content or not. It's does it add something new or original or valuable to the internet? So that's where there are again, I think the rise of the expert and the thought leader is upon us. I know I have dramatically accelerated my content creation workflow by, in short, training a custom GP to write in my own voice, based on a whole bunch of old posts that were my kind of basically my favorite old posts. I used that to train it, taught it some strategy, gave it all the documents that I would train a human with. And now I go in and basically am able to I'll have a thesis that I want to prove in a blog post, or a point that's really bugging me, or a position. And I'll just go in and basically describe it and share my outline with ChatGPT. And then posts come out that are my own voice. They're better written than they would have been written if I'd taken the additional 2 hours to write them out in full. But they're based on an idea and a premise that is different than what everybody else might be saying, or what you'd get if you just had AI spit something out. So that's kind of what you want to look to do. And yeah, and again, those posts are actually ranking. So and they're niche topics, but if I go and search for them, it's like, yeah, there's my post. So they're absolutely not getting blocked or anything, and they are also absolutely mostly being written by AI, but by an AI that I trained to be me, essentially. So yeah, which is a whole lot different than just hopping down, which thousands of people are going to do today, and write something like, oh, give me a post on the top 10 tips for content marketing. I guarantee somebody will ask for that exact post today somewhere and will post that. That doesn't have value anymore.
Yeah, and for that person who's doing it as they're watching this podcast or listening to the podcast, don't forget to also ask for it to generate a clickbaity title to really engage the audience.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that, I think you use the word human almost as many times as you use the word AI in the last few minutes. I think we need to do a count at the end of this to see, but it's kind of ironic how we're hearing the word human more than ever in this age of AI. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, I actually hosted a seminar last week, meetup that was about humanizing AI. That was the whole topic of it. So yeah, it'll be lots to talk about there.
All right, let's talk about the emergence of the Ask Engine. Can you explain, first of all, what is the Ask Engine and how is it changing the way that people are looking for information online compared to traditional search?
Yeah, so there's a million terms right now for how people are using AI, and Ask Engine is one of the most prominent. It's funny in my case, we've gone with AI search optimization for the time being. Other folks are referring to GEO or generative engine optimization. Others are referring to AEO as Ask Engine optimization. I have no idea what it's going to land at, but that said, I mean it's really folks for at least folks who have tried ChatGPT to answer a question are increasingly not going back to Google because it is just so good at answering questions. The I had a nutritional question the other day, and it spat out an answer that cited like 5 or 6 different websites and strung it all in a coherent answer that basically told me everything I needed to know about it. Rather than, and I mean, don't get me wrong, because I do like Google, and Google search was an incredible sort of technological
Did you say
advancement, but
was? Are you speaking of it in the past?
well, still is, but but to get the same level and quality of information, I would have had to scroll past the ads, would have had to ignore the incorrect or the irrelevant results. I would have probably found maybe 2 results on the first page that I could have clicked on and would have gotten a partial answer to my question. So even just, I mean, it took 20 seconds to give me an answer that I would have had to look for, that would have taken 10 minutes and still wouldn't have had as complete or good an answer. And I would have had to kind of compile or remember all the bits and pieces along the way. I mean, another example, I just did a fun little proof of concept for some educational market partners that we're working with, and did a custom GPT programmed custom, not programmed is the wrong word. I used natural language to build a custom GPT that will help anybody looking for a university in Canada to get a fantastic answer to what they're looking for. And it asks things like, budget, field of study, level of study, what sort of weather you like, what sort of culture you like, what languages you speak, and goes in a matter of sort of 3 minutes of answering a few questions without going to a website. You've got a better summary of the best Canadian universities for your exact preferences. And I mean, it's just there's nothing like that in search. That would literally take days of searching, and you would not get that question answered of, oh, what's the best place for me as a mid-career learner to go and get an MBA. You would spend days and not get the answer that AI is producing in minutes.
So we're getting conventional, traditional, like Google search out of the picture. And I heard you say, I didn't even need to go to a website to get the information. So are websites next? Are those going away? Are those not going to be important anymore? We just need to feed the ask engines?
Perhaps. My partner Ryan at Plus ROI, who I think you've met over the years, Robert, he's convinced that in a sense websites are going to go away. In that, why would you go picking through a site when you could just ask a question and get everything you know? And I mean, I've even come to a point where I go to a large website and I'm like, I just want to know what this is going to cost. And I'll open ChatGPT on the side and ask it what that service costs. Like, and I'm not making that up. I mean, especially companies hide their pricing information sometimes so deeply, and so I can absolutely see for sort of question based, mission based searches, websites could become somewhat irrelevant. I think there's always a brand component and a discovery sort of thing. So I don't think websites are going anywhere, but their importance and how they're important could certainly change dramatically. And that said, I mean, I got a Yellow Pages at my front door last week.
You got,
So,
wait, the actual printed
yeah, yeah. I
6 inch
was just looking
big
over
yellow. They're
this.
still printing them.
Yeah, I still
I
have
thought
a.
those were gone.
It's about a tenth the size that it used to be, but it still exists. So suffice to say, I don't think Google's going anywhere, and particularly at a local level. I think it will take much longer. Like if I'm looking for a, pizza delivery. Well, actually, if I was looking for pizza delivery, quite frankly, I would go to ChatGPT first and mention kind of dietary preferences and where I live and a couple other factors and see what I probably would do that first, but most people are quite conditioned to going to Google for that. So I don't think Google's going to disappear, and I think Google's still going to be important. But I'm I'm wondering what is its market share going to be a year from now? It
Yeah,
might.
and it sounds like the amount of effort that we need to put into websites is is changing from, informational to maybe experiential. Give people a reason to actually spend some time going through your site, because as you said, right now you're going to somebody's site, you're not even going through it. You're just like asking GPT to find the answer on that page that you want. So give somebody a reason to actually want to explore your site because it's fun or some other reason than just a bunch of content that somebody has to go and figure out, where do I find what I'm looking for?
Yeah, no, I love that term experiential. I'm gonna steal that. Thank you.
Got it. Well, I
But
guess
on the flip side, and I hadn't really been thinking about this before, but in terms of like the sort of short copy versus long copy debate, there kind of is no debate in terms of AI search. You need all your information. So how do you, so I think it'll become kind of an art to structure a website that has that experiential flow, but also goes very deep. And again, I've got a GPT telling me what sort of student associations might be interesting to me in terms of when I'm doing my, and considering that is a factor when I'm doing my search, my example search of a mid-career MBA thing, so like everything has to be available for it to pull from, or you're going to be missing out. And in fact, the factors that go into AI search optimization, there's on the one hand, you've got clear, concise summaries becoming exceptionally important, but then also comprehensiveness and readability is another huge factor. So I think there's going to be a real art to blending the experience, and with having that depth of information on the site, that sort of taxonomy and linking that I mentioned will also become hugely important.
And so are we at a point, are we at the beginning of where if somebody is starting a new business or adding a new product line or something like that, where they don't really need to build a website, they just need to figure out how to create something that is going to feed the ask engines?
So I'd say yes and no, in that right now the only thing that does feed the ask engines is a website. for the most part. I mean, and there are exceptions to that, but uh, so I think you need to do both. And again, I mean, have to remind myself that my perspective is a bit warped. Maybe I know this is laying it out like this is happening. Like there's no doubt about that. But having kind of bought into it and seen the logic around it, my brain is going, oh, this is urgent. Like this is all going to happen in the next 6 months to a year. When really, maybe it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years. Although I have to share when I say 3, 4, and 5 years. Um, that sounds ridiculous to me coming out of my mouth as how long it will take. Because I think it's just going to accelerate like crazy.
Yeah, we just don't know. We just don't know. But what we do know is that between now and in the next 6 weeks and 6 months, things are already going to look different than they are right now. So,
Yeah, weekly. I mean, it was October 31st when when ChatGPT announced that web search was available in their free version. And yeah, 3 months later, roughly 14% adoption in the US. I mean, that's crazy. And the way these things go, that likely will just, spike from there. But
so yeah, the only certainty is change, as they say.
absolutely.
All right, so I think we touched on it at the beginning of the conversation about gaming the search and gaming AI search to get content prioritized so that somebody goes and searches for, SEO optimization firm. You want to see your company ROI Plus and Robert Cooper coming up in the top results. So talk to me about, is gaming a good idea? Is there actually a way to do it? And if so, you need to tell everybody, of course, how to do it.
Yeah, well, it was just when we put up a new service page last month around the AI search optimization, and an interesting topic as well because AI is ridiculously bad at answering questions about firms providing the service because it doesn't have the historical knowledge around it. So it was like banging my head against the wall. At the time, and it'd be interesting to check it again a month later, but at the time, AI could not discern between search traditional SEO powered by AI or assisted by AI versus optimizing for AI search engines or AI search. And so it's really interesting. So the thought actually crept through my head. It's kind of like, well, oh, what if I got a bunch of people to search and ask questions and give feedback, and then when my company did show up, rate that feedback as good? I guarantee there are people out there doing that right now. And I absolutely believe that could result in a short-term bump in exposure. But that said, as much as I'm going on about it, the majority of searchers are not using it yet, so there is no huge advantage to doing that at the moment, except maybe to see cause and effect. 6 months from now, different story. But the other thing is, gosh darn it, AI is going to be smart enough to figure this out. The pattern recognition and Google already does a decent job of that on some levels, but things like yeah, hiring a bunch of folks in other locations to where more affordable sort of helpers to boost things like that, which I mean, people almost ruin some of the social media platforms by doing that. It really easy to do, but really easy to figure out for AI as well. So uh, yeah, I think there's kind of no end of tricks that you could pull that might work right now, but the level of intelligence that AI exhibits isn't just increasing incrementally; it's like growing in leaps and bounds. So I feel anything that you can figure out as a human to game the system in AI will eventually get figured out. Um,
So if we look at this from the ethics point of view, the morality point of view, and if I have a client and they're asking me, I understand there's a way to game the AI search, maybe get a bunch of people together, maybe hire a farm of people overseas to go and pump up my results. But ethically, is that the right thing to do? Kind of a tricky question.
Well, ethically, I think it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. But again, having some silver hair here and having been at it for a while, in the grand market, ethics aren't going to mean anything to a large percentage of service providers. It is going to be, will this work? And yeah, that's again with this link building industry that's existed for years. It's deceptive. It's unethical. Although, I mean, I think the folks that have no problem are like, oh, it's just the playing field. I'm just taking advantage of the playing field. So in that sense, maybe it is ethical, but
Well,
I,
for those folks who aren't so concerned about the ethical, I guess the question for them is, what's the downside? What's the worst that can happen if we get, if we get caught? What happens?
well, I mean, historically, the most aggressive SEO agents, and I mean, SEO is a brutal industry. I mean, for every, I mean, I think all of us as business owners and marketers, if you go and look in your spam bucket, you'll see you've had multiple solicitations for email services on a weekly basis. There's no barriers to entry. There's no certifications. There's no standards. So it's the Wild West, and uh, and simply, you just need to throw up a website and you can claim to be it. So, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, but historically, the most aggressive SEO agencies are playing in that sort of gray hat and black hat area, getting very impressive results, but then burning, then it all goes up in flames and they move on to the next client. And the real challenge is that the market is not educated enough to know the difference. And I'm not picking on the market, but you need to know a lot about it to understand why some of these things are such a bad idea. So I think we can probably expect to see a lot more of that coming down the pipe. So I think that's our responsibilities as senior marketers is to understand enough about it to help our clients sort of make right decisions about the ethics and as well, yeah, leaving the term ethics out, as you said, the result of what's going to happen by taking these shortcuts that seem so promising up front.
So buyer beware. So where does all this leave paid advertising? People aren't going to Google anymore, so they're not going to see your ads, even if you're bidding, a top dollar to get in the top position. Is there right now, is there any way of paying AI search engines to get you on top, or they just haven't gotten there yet?
That's the big question mark, and that's actually, I mean, my agency biggest area we do is paid search. We've been doing Google search ads forever, and it represents over half our business. So this is, in looking at it from a real existential perspective, there was really no alternative for us than to go very meaningfully into AI to be assured of future. That said, I don't know that there is another scenario where Google is using Gemini to produce results at the top of each search, at the top of many search results. Now you've got your Gemini, you've got your AI in there. So I wouldn't rule out Google doing something bold, like making Gemini, having advertising possibly in Gemini or in their hybrid Gemini Google search window. Um, they've got deep pockets. So, for instance, to get a lot of the functionality in ChatGPT or Perplexity, you need to pay. So, I mean, Google theoretically could roll out a better offering for free that still has ads in it. That's going to appeal to a huge percentage of the marketplace. And again, they're not going to roll over and die. My fear I don't think paid ads are going away. I don't think Google paid ads are going away. My fear really is that Google at some point could choose to make agencies redundant in the exchange of value with Google Ads, because right now um, Google is actually doing an almost deceptive job of making advertising really accessible. So like they have your PMAX campaigns that are powered by AI and all this. What those campaigns don't have is a lot of insight. So you need to know a lot about it to be able to dig in and discover, oh, actually these AI PMAX campaigns are focusing on remarketing and they're focusing on brand search. So that's not to say those campaigns can't have major value, but they're absolutely not apples to apples compared to traditional search campaigns where you're looking for new clients who have never heard of you, who are searching for your service. So it's not a direct comparison. So I think Google does lots of good things with AI for search. It really helps with the conversion-based bidding, which we've been using forever. Like 15 plus years. And it if you feed it well with conversion data, it does an awesome with the right conversion data, it does an awesome job. So that's a very long-winded way of getting to the ads, but I don't see them going anywhere. And actually, to be honest, I'm gonna guess that somewhere between 60 and 90% of Google's advertising revenue is actually filtered through agencies at this point, because you do need an agency. Unless you want to become an expert yourself and spend hundreds of hours of doing it, you need an agency or a freelancer who's very skilled to manage it. So with that huge percentage of ads being managed, I don't see them cutting the legs out from under us anytime soon. So that's my real hope, anyhow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking back to circa 2010 when I was running my own Google AdWords campaigns. It wasn't nearly as complex as it is today. There weren't a lot of agencies who were able to do a great job, and I was just doing it myself, and I was crushing it. I tried hiring agencies, tried hiring other experts. They couldn't match the results I was getting. And now that has all shifted in the last, 15 years or so to agency heavy because it's become so specialized. You really need experts who live and breathe this every day like you do. And now, well, like you said, it sounds like we still need some human analytical elements at the very least to nuance those Google results and get the real insights. But as AI becomes more generative AI and has better thinking capabilities, if we have the same conversation in a year from now, it would be interesting to see where that's at.
Yeah, I don't have any predictions there, other than that my hope again with ads is that when everybody has access to the same tools and the same AI, that somebody who's been in the market understands the regions that they're working in, understands the industry that they're working in, and understands the customers and clients in the region that they're working in, will have at least a slight edge, which, again, in a market of zero differentiation, a slight edge hopefully will be a big edge. Because, yeah, it's absolutely going that way.
All right, so let's finish off on the topic of thought leadership and how thought leadership is becoming even more important than ever to stand out in the crowd of all the AI generated content and everything else going on and all the noise. Any tips, any suggestions on how to really become a dominant thought leader in any particular niche or category or specialty?
Yeah, I mean, just to back up a bit, I mean, thought leadership has been around forever. I mean, in the late '90s, I had a digital print shop and had printed guides that set us apart and did business talks. And as an introverted marketer, that was my number one way of getting new business at that time was by having some information and educating the marketplace in a way that they responded to, and that hasn't changed. I have yet to see an example of somebody who decided to take a responsible thought leadership approach and have a bad outcome. And again, this is where it really comes down to is we're soon going to have everybody with access to all of the same information. So the idea of an expert that can add value on top of that uh, absolutely makes sense, and anybody can do it. It really is a question of niching down to a point, it might, or a region, and finding something that you can actually know more about than anybody else who is addressing your market, and then doing the activities in order to in order to get seen for that. I mean, I've been through that experience myself recently, and it's going great. I mean, in terms of, again, from my own perspective as seeing an existential threat to the existence of our business, made the conscious choice to become a thought leader in AI for marketing. And that's not sort of a manipulative thing. And so I just want to put myself out there so that people see it. It's like, well, no, I need to learn all about this. I need to be an expert to be able to guide my agency so that we can keep our team together in the coming years and ideally grow. So there's that holistic thing. And then looking at, I mean, I've did 2 events last week. I'm involved in 3 events this week where people are inviting me out because I'm adding value and sharing valuable information. And so there are opportunities in just about any sector, any industry. If you're an FCMO, for instance, picking the niche that you probably already know more about than everybody else, and then figuring out, okay, well, what is the biggest problem or biggest opportunity for my market, and then getting out and sharing that information with them. It's really not that complicated, and I think it is going to be more important than ever in an AI era to do that, or more advantageous than ever to do that.
So same old story. No, the same old formula still works in this AI day and age, perhaps more than ever. Find the pain points of your audience, niche down, and start addressing them and offering solutions and strategies. And as you said, your phone is ringing now. People are finding you and asking you to come and speak. You're not doing outbound as much anymore. So that's when you know that you've got the formula right, and just keep on going. Cool. Good stuff. Rob, where can people find you?
Our website is plusroi.com. I will give the shameless plug that we are, getting deep into the thought leadership space, AI search optimization. I'm also love to connect on LinkedIn. So Robert Cooper on LinkedIn, the Robert Cooper who's in Victoria, British Columbia. I'm easy to track down, and as you can probably tell, I talk too much. Love to chat about all things digital marketing.
Awesome. All right. We're gonna definitely do this again in a few months and see where things are at, see how things have evolved, and continue to benefit from your thought leadership in the space. Thanks so much, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Robert.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. If you're a fractional professional based in Canada, we'd love to have you join us in the Fractional Pros Canada Facebook group, the home for Canada's fractional community. It's where Canadian fractional executives connect, share insights, and help each other succeed. Until next time, I'm Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO. May your impact be full-time, even if your hours are fractional.